Or Information Networks by Yuval Noah Harari. How have networks shaped human history, knowledge, and power? Join us as we unravel the impact of information flow on society and the future. This episode will be hosted by two hosts who will discuss the key themes, insights, and implications of Harari's work. Get ready for an engaging conversation. Let's get started.
All right, welcome to the deep dive, everyone. We all want to understand the world better, right? But who has the time to wade through mountains of information? We get it. You're here for those aha moments, those insights that really make you think and connect the dots without feeling completely overwhelmed.
Absolutely. And today we're going deep on a topic that's both incredibly old and startlingly new. Information networks. We'll be tracing their evolution from, well, pretty much the dawn of humanity all the way to the age of AI.
That's right, and our guide for this deep dive is the book Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. As we go, we'll be pulling out key ideas and seeing how these networks, these ways of connecting and sharing, have shaped us and our societies.
And what's really crucial is that we're not just looking back for the sake of it. We're trying to understand the fundamental role these networks have played, and crucially, what their evolution can tell us about the changes happening right now with the rise of AI.
Because, let's face it, AI is changing the game faster than most of us can keep up with. So buckle up, get ready for some surprising connections, and hopefully a new way of seeing the forces shaping our world.
So the book kicks off with a really interesting challenge to a common assumption about power. We often think of power as coming from individual brilliance, right? The lone genius, the visionary leader. But the book suggests something different.
Yeah, it really flips the script. It argues that power isn't about going it alone, it's about cooperation. It's about networks. In fact, it even uses those classic stories of Phaethon and the Sorcerer's Apprentice to make the point, suggesting those tales, while warning about overreach, might actually misunderstand where true human power comes from.
Exactly. It's not the lone genius that changes the world. It's our ability to cooperate, to work together on a massive scale. And the book emphasizes that this large-scale cooperation is something we humans are uniquely good at. Think about chimpanzees. They can cooperate, sure, but only in small groups. And ants, well, they have huge colonies, but the cooperation is very rigid, driven by instinct.
Right, so chimps are flexible but limited in scale, and ants are vast but inflexible. So where do humans fit in?
Humans have cracked the code. We can cooperate flexibly in huge numbers. Think of the Catholic Church with over 1 billion members, or China with a similar population, or even the global trade network connecting almost everyone on the planet. This kind of scale is impossible if everyone needs to know each other personally. So how do we do it?
So what's the secret sauce that allows us to coordinate on such a massive scale?
The book introduces this really cool idea, human-to-story chains. It suggests that instead of relying on direct connections, which limits network size, we humans connect through shared stories. These stories become the central nodes, allowing countless individuals to link in.
So it's not just about who you know, it's about what you believe in, the narratives that bind us together. Can you give me some concrete examples of these human-to-story chains in action?
Absolutely. Think about the 1.4 billion Catholics connected by the stories of the Bible and Christian teachings, or the citizens of China, unified by narratives of communism and national identity. Even the global trade network relies on shared stories about currencies, corporate reputations, and the power of brands. These shared narratives are the operating system for large-scale human cooperation.
So it's the belief in these stories that unlocks our ability to achieve such incredible things together.
Exactly. And the book delves into how belief and even our emotional investments shape these stories. Take the story of Jesus, for example. The book suggests it wasn't necessarily a deliberate invention, but rather a process where figures like Paul and Augustine projected their hopes and emotions onto the figure of Jesus. And look what happened. It became the foundation of one of the world's largest religions.
So it's not just about facts and figures, it's about the emotional resonance of the story.
Right. And that brings us to this idea of intersubjectivity realities that exist because we collectively believe in them. The book argues that laws, gods, currencies, these are all intersubjective realities. They're incredibly powerful within the network of believers, but meaningless outside of it. You know that analogy of a billionaire stranded on a desert island with all his wealth? That's the perfect illustration. All that money means nothing if there's no system to give it value.
Yeah, a stack of gold bars won't buy you a glass of water if no one recognizes it as currency.
Precisely. And this highlights something crucial. Large-scale group identities and interests are shaped by these shared stories, these intersubjective beliefs, more than just objective material needs. Chimps, for instance, share our basic needs for food and shelter, but they lack the capacity for large-scale cooperation because they don't create and sustain these unifying narratives.
So history isn't just about material conditions and resources, it's also about the stories we tell ourselves and the beliefs we share.
Absolutely. And the book emphasizes how history can be deeply shaped by belief, even in stories that turn out to be incredibly harmful. The rise of Nazism is a stark example. The economic turmoil of the 1930s created fertile ground. But the Third Reich wasn't an inevitable outcome. Millions of Germans actively chose to believe in the Nazi narrative over other available stories, with devastating consequences.
A powerful reminder of how influential and dangerous stories can be.
And the book offers this fascinating comparison between the U.S. Constitution and the Ten Commandments to illustrate how the origin of our shared stories can affect our ability to change them. The Constitution starts with "we the people," implying a human origin, and thus the possibility of amendment and change. But the Ten Commandments begin with "I am the Lord your God," claiming divine origin. This makes them much harder to challenge or revise. The book even points out that the biblical text contains endorsements of slavery that are still debated today.
So acknowledging the human origin of our social orders gives us the power to adapt and improve them.
Exactly. Now, beyond these unifying narratives, the book argues that large-scale human networks need something else to function effectively. Organized systems, what we call bureaucracy. It's this interplay of mythology, those captivating stories, and bureaucracy, those often dreaded systems, that allows these networks to thrive.
So you have the inspiring narratives that bind us together and the practical structures that keep things running, a sort of yin and yang of human organization.
Exactly, and the book uses the example of national movements to illustrate this. Think of the poets and singers who inspire national identity, like Shevchenko for Ukraine or Paidufi for Hungary. Theodor Herzl, a key figure in the Zionist movement, called these the dreams, songs, fantasies that birth nations. But you also need the organizers, the accountants, the people keeping meticulous tax records. These practical structures translate inspiring narratives into functioning institutions.
So the poets ignite the movement and the administrators keep the lights on.
In essence, yes. And the book highlights how lists and stories are deeply intertwined. National myths legitimize things like tax records, and those records, in turn, allow those myths to manifest in schools, hospitals, infrastructure. This same dynamic is crucial in finance. The value of a currency, whether it's dollars or Bitcoin, rests on a shared story of belief. But it's the complex bureaucratic systems, the central banks and digital ledgers, that make it all work.
Belief fuels the system, and the system reinforces the belief. Fascinating. Now let's talk about bureaucracy itself. What are its defining features, and how does it shape our world?
At its core, bureaucracy is about creating order. It does this through lists, categories, standardized procedures. The book points out how historically we've become more and more reliant on written documents for things like property ownership. Instead of relying on communal memory or verbal agreements, we started using formal records to define and enforce rights. This shift made things clearer, less ambiguous in many ways.
Yeah, less room for misunderstandings and disputes when everything is clearly documented.
Exactly. And the book acknowledges that bureaucracy, while often frustrating, has its benefits. It's crucial for organizing complex societies, for delivering vital services. Think of healthcare, education, sanitation, infrastructure. These all depend on functional bureaucracies. The book uses this great analogy, the deep state of our government systems. They're vast, intricate, mostly hidden networks that keep our cities running smoothly and protect public health. We often take them for granted, but they're essential.
The unsung heroes of modern civilization.
Right. But as we all know, bureaucracies can also be incredibly frustrating. The book points out that they can be complex, opaque, even unfathomable. It contrasts them with the more easily grasped biological dramas we see in art and mythology, those classic hero versus villain narratives. The horror of the document, as the book calls it, comes from our struggle to comprehend the logic and motivations behind these vast impersonal systems. It's just easier to understand a personal conflict than, say, the intricacies of a government regulation.
Right, bureaucracy isn't exactly known for its compelling storytelling.
And the book shares a really powerful anecdote from your own family history to illustrate this. The story about your grandfather in Chernivtsi, whose life was upended because of a census and a missing document, really shows how bureaucratic processes, while often necessary, can have a huge impact on individual lives.
It's a reminder that behind every rule and regulation, there are real human stories. Now, the book goes on to explore the relationship between information networks and the concepts of truth and order, which feels particularly relevant today.
It is, and the book really challenges that common assumption that more information automatically equals more truth. That if we just have enough data, the right answers will just pop out.
Like if we just keep scrolling, the truth will eventually reveal itself.
Exactly. But the book argues that errors, lies,